I was born with the curiosity to explore the realms of darkness, to seek out the elusive shadows and question their existence, their never-ending convolution with the light. All things were born from this darkness. Question everything. Find your own truth, engage all mysteries, open your mind, and join me on my journey through the darkness. Join me on my journey as we take a look into the scariest place in the United States and possibly the world. A place so terrifying it hosts a number of paranormal phenomenon, including UFOs, Bigfoot sightings, poltergeists, orbs, and other spectral phenomenon. It is also the site where countless witnesses have seen the cryptid thunderbird, a large reptilian-bird-like creature identified with Native American folklore. It's a place where livestock has been mutilated and drained of blood, and is the ritual spot for the dark arts and satanic cults. All this in an area of about 200 square miles in southeastern Massachusetts known as the Bridgewater Triangle. When I first began researching this paranormal hotspot, I was unaware of the stories, unaware of the terrifying witness accounts and sightings. I had never even heard of the Bridgewater Triangle. Along my journey, I've made many friends. One that I consider to be a very close friend happens to live near the triangle and mentioned I should look into it. Fran has been my guide and inspiration for this research into the unknown, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't even know that the triangle exists. I've spent countless hours dedicated to learning everything I could about the Triangle of Massachusetts. It's a terrifying place, and I confess that since learning of the Bridgewater Triangle, I have not slept much. I lay awake at night thinking about the horrific eyewitness accounts. Tonight, I share my findings, my research on the ghosts of the Bridgewater Triangle. Chapter 1. Most people who live within the Bridgewater Triangle will tell you about the ghost of the red-headed hitchhiker. For over 3 decades, eyewitnesses have reported the man walking along a dark stretch of road along Route 44. Some have seen him hitchhiking, while others see him standing along the side of the road, often with his head down. He sometimes appears in the middle of the road, scaring the hell out of those passing by. He is described as a tall, burly man with red hair and red beard. He is also always seen wearing a red flannel shirt. While the witness accounts slightly vary, the commonality of the events state that the man always appears normal, but vanishes suddenly and without warning as he laughs in the creepiest and most insane way. There are so many eyewitness reports that it's hard to believe that the stories are anything but true. Here are a few of the accounts. In the winter of 1969, a man was traveling Route 44 at about 45 miles per hour. He noticed something out of the corner of his eye at the passenger side window, and upon looking over, realized that a man's face peered in at him. He was smiling in an odd fashion and seemed crazed. The strangest part, though, was that it was impossible because the man was driving 45 miles per hour, yet this man's face kept up and smiled in at him. The driver pulled his car to the shoulder of the road, but the man had vanished. He sat there for a few minutes, perplexed by the whole thing. He says that the event still haunts him 46 years later. Another famous story of the red-headed hitchhiker involves a man driving down Route 44 on a dark summer's night in 1973. The lonely stretch of road was so desolate that he found it odd that a man would be hitchhiking. As the driver pulled to the side of the road to let the man in, he could see him in the rearview mirror running towards his truck. The hitchhiker opened the door and climbed in. The driver asked him where he was headed, but the hitchhiker sat and smiled and said nothing. The driver asked again, but was met with the same eerie smile and silence. He was spooked by his odd and eerie behavior, so he told the man to get out of his truck. The hitchhiker turned to him, smiled, and vanished. There's another story I heard that sent chills down my spine. A woman was driving along the same route when she encountered the phantom hitchhiker on a February night in 1981. She was driving above the speed limit but didn't give it a second thought because the stretch of road was so desolate, especially at that hour of night. Suddenly, she hit a man fitting the description of the red-headed hitchhiker. She said it was as if he had just appeared there. She didn't have time to stop or even swerve the car and was in a panic because she knew for certain that she must have killed him because she hit him at such a reckless speed. She stopped the car in the middle of the road and shook, terrified to see the devastation of her poor decision. She trembled as she exited the car and peered down the road, but was in shock to see that there was no body, no blood. It was as if he had vanished. She even looked underneath her car thinking he might have gotten caught up in the wheels, but he was nowhere to be seen. As she started to get back in the car, she heard what she describes as the most awful and sinister laughter she had ever heard. She said it was so terrifying that she couldn't get back into her car and out of there fast enough. A few miles down the road, the man appeared out of nowhere again, and again she ran him over, but this time she said it was as if she had gone right through him. Once again she stopped the car and rolled down her window to look behind her, just in case, but she heard the terrible, horrifying laughter again and got the hell out of there. While the hitchhiker stories are all very terrifying, there are other phantoms haunting the towns within the Bridgewater Triangle. Panic spread throughout the residents of Abington as an enormous black dog terrorized them, tearing out the throats of 2 ponies. It has since been labeled the Black Dog of Abington. Descriptions of the dog state that he was larger than any dog they had ever seen and was covered in blood. The sightings began on the morning of April 30th, 1976, when an Abington firefighter was awoken by his 12-year-old daughter who witnessed the dog tearing out the throats of her 2 ponies. The man fired his pistol at the dog, but it was as if the bullets went right through it. The dog was unaffected and ran off into the swamp. After thousands of reports from residents witnessing the blood-covered beast, local police decided to track it down and kill it. They found the dog the following day. The animal was just as the residents had described, enormous and covered in blood. Officers shot continuously at the beast, but it was as if the bullets were going right through him. The dog just stood and stared them down as they fired upon it. One officer said the dog didn't even try to run. It eventually just turned in the other direction and vanished as it walked away. The dog has never been seen again. Stay tuned next week for the 2nd chapter when we journey into the spooky cases of spectrals and other ghostly phenomenon.